Good evening. In Watergate, America was astounded by the fact that 18.5 minutes of secret presidential recordings were missing. Tonight, the latest Bush administration scandal, as yet unchristened, makes that figure seem like a drop in the proverbial bucket. Try this number. Infinity minus 140,216. Karl Rove's improper emails, the 140,000, are the ones still preserved. The rest, the infinity part, the ones that were destroyed. Our fifth story in the countdown, thousands upon thousands of these apparently illegal emails have also been apparently illegally erased in a jaw-dropping scandal that touches Rove, Andy Card, and even Alberto Gonzales. In a preliminary report, the ongoing congressional investigation into whether Bush White House officials violated the Presidential Records Act, uncovering, quote, what could be the most serious breach of the Presidential Records Act in that law's history, dating back 30 years. What would seem to be hundreds of thousands, if not perhaps millions of emails that have been potentially destroyed and probably shouldn't have been sent in the first place. To give you some extent of the scale, the House Oversight Committee reporting that the Republican National Committee preserved those 140,216 emails sent or received by Karl Rove on its server, but only 130 of those emails had been sent to Mr. Rove during the president's first term, none of them prior to November 2003, and that just accounts for Karl Rove. Now imagine 87 other White House officials and what the numbers in their accounts might have been. In the words of Press Secretary Tony Snow, that's a whole lot of email.
You were saying at the time there were like 50 staffers. We're actually saying no, it's more like 88. And there are indications. I mean, 140,000 emails is a lot of emails.
That's a whole lot of emails.
And that's just Rove. That's not all the other folks.
That's a whole lot of email. Absolutely right. Let me put it this way. We've seen a number of times right now where people have been putting together investigations to see what sticks. They have had very little success so far. This is an administration that is very careful about obeying the law. We take it seriously. The White House Legal Counsel's Office takes it seriously.
But not the White House counsel's office when Alberto Gonzales was running it, at least not according to today's congressional report, which says Mr. Gonzales took no action to preserve presidential records. In other words, the man now in charge of enforcing the nation's laws looked the other way. The law here, relevant to this point, government business is not to be conducted on political parties' email servers. Also, the now Attorney General with new problems at the Justice Department. Defense lawyers in federal cases who are using the firings of those 9 U.S. attorneys to claim that their clients may have been targeted for purely political reasons as well. Let's bring in our man, our veteran on the scandal beat, correspondent David Schuster in Washington. David, good evening.
Keith, good evening to you and welcome back.
Thank you. First, the White House told us that only a handful of the White House officials had RNC email accounts to begin with. Today, the congressional investigators say they've uncovered, well, you get to say how many. How many accounts?
88, almost 90. In fact, investigators say that, and those are, of course, just the ones they know about. Investigators suspect that it may be 90 or perhaps even 100 White House officials who were involved in this. And what is so striking, Keith, is that it backs up the long-held suspicion that the political business was essentially conducted on government property, which, as you have mentioned, is illegal, and that it was not just an isolated effort at the White House, as was initially claimed by White House officials, but rather that this was organized, orchestrated, and quite widespread.
So if it's 88 that they know of, emails for how many accounts have been wiped out completely? How many of them are just blanks at this point?
Well, and that's where it gets really interesting. 51 of the 88 are missing, and some of the key accounts that are missing are from the White House political shop. For example, Ken Mellon, who was the White House political director a couple of years ago, his email records are completely gone. And again, the suspicion that has been raised is that officials like Mellon were mixing politics and government business, and that somebody wanted to hide the emails that would show the mix. Some of the emails that were recovered include Andy Card, the former White House chief of staff, and officials in the office of the vice president. But the number of accounts missing suggests that several officials may have been deeply enmeshed with Card and others in coordinating official government actions with the Republican Party. So again, you have two laws that are in play here: the Presidential Records Act, which requires White House officials not to destroy or delete official correspondence, and then the other law in play is the Hatch Act, which says you cannot engage in political business on government property.
So, all right, what happens next? And I'm, it's my first day back, but don't try to give me the answer that congressional investigators are just going to send the White House a letter requesting information, because that doesn't seem to be working.
No, I mean, what's going to happen now is you already have some subpoenas that have been issued for White House officials, including Sarah Taylor, who's one of the Rove political aides at the White House, who sent tens of thousands of emails. There are already subpoenas for her testimony, and what Congress wants to do is ask her not only about the U.S. attorney scandal, which was the point of the subpoena, but also ask her about the system of using Republican National Committee emails. And on top of what Congress is doing, there's this government agency called the Office of Special Counsel, and they have already been investigating what Karl Rove was doing as far as mixing politics on official government property. Is expected that this issue of the emails and the missing emails will also be part of the Office of Special Counsel, which is entitled to make criminal referrals if they find that particularly relevant email accounts or documents have been destroyed. And of course, that is the claim the Democrats are making, that not only laws were broken, but that there was a deliberate effort by somebody in the White House and perhaps at the Republican National Committee to try to make sure there was no trace of what was really going on.
Oh, and one final point, David, this isn't just government business being conducted on the RNC email server, but also on the Bush-Cheney 04 campaign email server?
That's right, a variety of email servers, and the point being that, again, you cannot conduct official government business, you cannot rather conduct official political business, whether it's for the Republican National Committee and talking about which senator might benefit from a particular policy, or whether the presidential campaign in a particular state might benefit from a policy. You cannot make those sort of decisions or even have those sort of communications with government agencies on official government property. So if Karl Rove, for example, and this is hypothetical, but suppose he said to a particular government agency, take this action because it will help the Republican National Committee. If there was a communication with the Republican National Committee or coordination or asking the RNC, hey, if I get the Energy Department to do this, might it help Senator whoever? You can't do that, and that's where the Democrats are justified in saying, what's going on here, and why are all these records missing?
And you can't wash it through an outside server, and you can't erase the emails one way or the other. So there's
right.
3 strikes here. Correspondent David Schuster, busy as ever on the beat in Washington. Great thanks, David.
Thanks, Keith.